Give me the next book. Only 2 are left until the Helix will rise again.
Well, hello again and welcome back to Ruby the Elite. I can't even see my hand. It's so bright in here. Can you see my 2 hands? Because this is book number 9 of the project of the Helix. But I can't see anything in here. It is as bright as the sun. Or maybe I don't want you to see. I think that's correct. I'm pointing up here to the left. No, I'm pointing up here to the right. If you've not watched book 1 through 8, then get it going. Because I ain't showing you nothing now. No cheating. Let's get started on these panels. And you know what, folks? I am sick and tired of red. So much red. Ruby the Elite, the Elite 110, the Elite 250, the PCX, now this bike. 5 bikes in red. You know what? I like the Honda red, but we got to switch it out for something else. But before we do, we need to get all the clips, all the screws, everything off of these old panels. If you've got a pick set, the pick makes very easy work of taking these off. We'll also need to take the signals out. Everything needs to get moved. Of course, the panels are going to be saved. I'll just put them in the box that the new ones came in. But before we do, let's get a few things done real quick. I got to put on the helmet. That's what I call this. The helmet over our Speedo cluster. And there you go. Just so we have everything ready to put that front clip on. I was outside cleaning up the car and I thought, perfect opportunity for a little soak on these panels. Of course, I only did the light wash of the soap. I really didn't want to use the high pressure and blow these all into the neighbor's yard. But just getting them all nice and soaked up made it easier to get the old filth off of them. Anything I couldn't get off, I went over it with my Simply Green. But let's not hold this up any longer. Let's get to the nitty-gritty. Without further ado, I wanted to show you the new front clip. What do you think of the change of color? Wait a minute, I'm getting some electrical interference. White! White, what a difference. Bought these from WeBike from Japan. And I'm going to go over what I think of them as I install them. 34,698 yen equates to $224. Were they worth it? Well, we'll get back to that in a moment. Let's get these few pieces back on the bike because I'm already showing they're installed. Just a couple of bolts hold this on. Unfortunately, I can't see how beautiful my gas tank is any longer, but at least I know it's nice. When you go to purchase these, they do have a disclaimer saying that there could be issues with them. It's a B-class product. Also, if you don't have an SC, you don't have the mounting hardware. You'll know what I'm talking about later in the video with that. Just don't expect perfection, folks, because that's why the price is $224. These do have flaws, and I'll show you some that I ran into. The first thing that I noticed right off the bat, there's no holes. They didn't put any holes in the panels. At least in this front clip they didn't. Everywhere around, so now I'm going to have to drill holes and hope that I'm drilling them in the right place. This was something that did irritate me a bit. I understand that there could be some issues, maybe in the paint or something, but at least have the mounting holes. Well, I guess not. We're going to have to rely on doing it ourselves. The acrylic point drill bits for plastics. This is a very nice set to have if you need to put some holes in some plastic. It made easy work. I just try to line up the center by using these and hope for the best. I bought those drill bits when I was doing my windshield for my Morphus, and they were a godsend for that and this. Everything seems to be fine with what I drilled. You're also going to have to get your razor blade out and start making some of these mold marks disappear. Be prepared. You're going to have to do it on your set. I can't imagine that these are much different between sets. When I finally went to put the clip on, it was a little bit of a struggle to get everything lined up. My holes were okay, but they probably could have been a little bit more closer to the plastic just to make this hug a little bit better. I noticed in those vents that quite a bit needs to be cleaned up. I went through 3 razor blades just cleaning up mold marks. I wanted to make sure that when you put this front clip together that it went together nice and close and flawless. But in order to do that, you better be prepared to clean up all the edges. Now let's go ahead and plug in our turn signals and make sure they work. I'm sure they do. I just want to see how they look with the white front clip. The blue halo on. Looks pretty cool. I just haven't seen it, even with this front top helmet on, how it looks with the blue. Getting kind of excited. You could see how the edges over there in the corner, they needed to be a little bit closer to that dark gray plastic, but I did the best I could, and I think overall they still look fine. I decided to buy a few more pieces from WeBike, and I wanted to add some chrome right away. This piece that goes around the windshield, the chrome one, is longer than the original. Probably by about an inch. I wasn't expecting this, so we're going to have to clean this up too. Once I did open up the holes with my acrylic bit again, it was much easier to install. I tried to do it first without widening the holes, and there was no way it was going to fit. You know, the quality of these chrome pieces, again, not top notch. Don't expect these to look like chrome on a 57 Chevy, because they're not. It's fake chrome, and it's acceptable. I'll just say that. I wasn't too enthused, but once I got it on the bike, I did like the way that they came out. I had to put the 2 screws back in to hold the glass on, and once I did that, I had to monkey around with this a while in order to get it all to fit right, and I did eventually. I wanted to show you the end product rather than my frustration, because to be honest, this was a little frustrating to get lined up and get on, at least with what they sent me. Now, you might have the perfect piece sent to you, but mine was far from perfect. I also purchased this front grille. I figured, why not add a few pieces of the chrome? That way it looks like it was originally there. Again, this is the same thing as the piece that went on the windshield. The chrome is acceptable. I guess it's about as good as you can get for the $7 or $8. It costs more to ship this stuff than the actual piece costs, which is kind of funny. I honestly would have paid a little bit more money to get a little bit nicer finished part. Installed on the bike, it looked pretty good, I do admit. I'm being a bit harsh, but hey, I am a tough person to make happy when it comes to these bikes. Now the wind visors, I'd say they were nicest out of the chrome parts I bought. I didn't have to do anything with the holes, I didn't have to trim them, besides a few scuffs, which again, you have to come to expect they overall were better than the other two pieces. I think WeBike is very honest with their descriptions, and that way you can't give them too much flack if you get some parts that have some marks on them or need to be trimmed. They make it very clear they're B class. And that's how they keep the cost down. So for me to complain, it's very hard to. The left visor alone is like $65 if you're to buy them from Honda. So keep that in mind when you find the low prices on WeBike. At least it's an alternative to going back with the Honda part, but the Honda quality part is definitely going to be there. Now, I didn't think when I looked at some of these plastic parts that the Honda part justified 5 or 6 times the cost. I didn't think they were that much nicer. Definitely not as nice as what Yamaha puts in their panels. But there is a difference, and I wanted to make sure I was honest when I installed these. Now, when you buy this upper cowl set, it is considered the special edition set. In Japan, you have this option when you buy a Helix, or it's a Fusion there, and it comes with this spoiler, which I think is just so cool. It is going to give me the ability of having another brake light. It's, again, just what they shipped was a bit disappointing. First, they send you these connections, and they fall apart, and there's not even enough connections, nor is it long enough to tap into the wire that I wanted to tap into. So we're going to start over. We're going to rewire this the way I need to and make it work. You can see here another one of those paint little blurps where at least it's on the underside and you can't see it, but just a nasty scuff, if you want to call it. Now, I had to go to my local hardware store to buy screws because there were no screws in my set. I also needed to buy screws just to mount it to the bike. They only included these 2 pieces of metal that are kind of a bracket for each side. Those didn't fit right, but we'll get into all that in a minute. I still have left over some automotive wire. 16 gauge we'll use for this, along with some butt connectors as well. We're going to trim off what they installed and just make sure that we have plenty of wire to make it to the other side of the bike where we're going to tap into the wires that are for the signals and brakes. So first we need to make these wires long enough in order to reach. That was the first thing I didn't understand. There's nothing on that side to wire into. It would have made more sense to have the wiring come out the other side. But again, just my opinion. But we're going to crimp on some wire and make sure that we weatherproof these like we have every other regard where we've used them. And this is a great alternative if you don't have great soldering skills or don't want to solder. Just by installing these is going to give us the length that we need. And now we're just going to heat them up so they become waterproof. They'll shrink as you heat them. And there you go, perfect. And now that we've added some wires, we're going to test it. Let's make sure it works before we go any further. There you go. Looks beautiful. Now just by taking the wires and kind of braiding them together, it was easy for me to pass it down through this spoiler and have them come out this hole for our installation. I had to get out the drill bits once again, these acrylic point drill bits. I wanted to see if I could find how much they were on Amazon currently, but they're not available. I can tell you I paid $56 for them. Actually more than I thought I did. But at least now I can justify the cost since I've used them on a few bikes. The holes in this taillight, they weren't big enough. The holes in the spoiler were larger, so I had to open them up a bit. It's a tight fit, but definitely once held down with the new screws, it'll be on there for years to come. Now we're going to install this onto our back plastics. Keep in mind, I did not get any instructions with my cowl set. So this particular bracket, all kinds of trouble getting it on. This one I didn't have any problem whatsoever. I guess if you look at mine, try to install it the way I did, but I had to trim this bracket in order to make it work. At the end of the day, I guess you got to do what you got to do. Maybe yours might be different, but mine was kind of a pain. Now we're going to tap into the green and green-yellow wire that's coming out of our brake / turn signals. Now I found this to be the easiest way to do it by using a T-tap. All you've got to do is go around the wire that you want to tap into, and you can see how there's metal on the inside. That's going to cut the wire as pressure is applied to close it. And then once you do, it's going to make connection for you to plug in on the other side. You can see it's kind of like a light click, and then boom, we've got this side done. And now we'll go ahead and put a tap onto our other wire. Now I'm sure there's other ways you can do this. You can solder, you can do whatever you like. I'm just showing you what is the simplest way to do it. And then all we have to do is plug in. We can unplug this or plug it in at any time we like. And it worked out pretty simply for me. I wanted to make sure that I also mentioned that the green wire goes to the black and the green-yellow wire goes to the brown. I installed some electrical tape just as a precaution and to try to make it a little more water resistant. I'll show you the functionality of the brake light once we get those back panels all buttoned up. But first, I wanted to make sure that I got this all in place and we can move on. After widening our holes once again, I was able to put the 2 bolts on each side of our rear upper cowls. A little bit of a tight fit, but opening the holes definitely helped. Next, we'll install our right rubber pillion step. 1 bolt. We'll hold that on. After we do, now we've got to do our little side piece and make sure you put the bottom in first. Line the tabs up with the 4 upper holes. Once you have it there, you just slide it to the right. Very simple when you do it the correct way. 1 bolt holds this on. All right, on to our right rear lower cowl. There's 3 tabs that are on this, and they go right up into our brand new white plastic above. Unfortunately, that didn't initially happen because the holes weren't big enough. I did go ahead and open those up as well. 4 screws hold this on. And now this is all set. We're going to move on to our center piece of plastic, and there is 4 screws that hold this on. I try to show them to you, but they're kind of hard to see through all the other things, but trust me, there is 4 that hold this on, and we'll mark this off the list. Reinstalling the maintenance cover where it all began. The poop. All the poop, the nasty nest, everything. This got a thorough cleaning before I put it back on. Now we have our pillion on the other side, our other little step here. We're going to go ahead, put the 1 bolt that holds this on. Now our center piece of plastic. Again, putting the bottom on and then lining up the top and sliding it on. Finally, our left rear lower cowl. 4 screws holding this on. Now on to the back of the bike. We need to take the pieces off of this red plastic for our rear trunk cover. We'll go ahead and slide our lock under, and then there's a spring, a lock spring that holds this in place. But first we need to put down this back plate. Once we have the black plate over the lock, then you could push that little spring in, and that keeps it in place. Now we just have to put the 8 or so screws back in it. Once we have all those in, I'll show you what I put on the rear. I put a Honda decal. I had a huge scratch, the worst scratch of all the panels, but this covered it up. Well, how does she look? Now that we can actually see, right? The sun's not blinding our eyes like it was at the beginning of the video. Overall, just not having the red anymore is a huge deal. Nice to see some white. Summertime, ladies. You can wear the white until Labor Day. I guess then we'll put the red back on her. By the way, these under cowls, I did not talk about the installation, but it's just 4 screws that hold each one on. They're pretty self-explanatory. Let's talk about WeBike from Japan. The cowl set I got, the white set, overall I give it a B-. I think that the fit and finish and not having the screw holes as well as the cleanup, they lost a little bit of a grade because of it. They did say that there would be some issues and it would be a B part. They just didn't really give a good enough description of what you're going to get. But put things in perspective, folks. $224 got you a whole new set of plastics. I mean, you couldn't buy just one part from Honda for that if Honda even sold them anymore. You can't buy any of this stuff from them. So it's really hard to be harsh on WeBike when they offer all these things. So you can make your Helix look like brand new again. We're close to it. The chrome pieces, I thought those were okay. They did give a new look to the scooter, but overall the thing that I liked the most was this. Having the special edition spoiler I just thought was so cool. That's not something that you could get in the United States on the Helix. It came on the Fusion when you bought it in Japan. I'm not sure for how long, but it just gives such a sporty look to the bike. I'll show you the functionality of that brake light in our final video. Book number 10. There's still a few things I got to add to the bike. I've got one more budget gadget for the scooter. Plus we've got to do the brake. We got to change out the tire. And our first ride, all in the last book. But I want to see some comments from y'all. Tell me your experience with WeBike. Tell me what you think of what I did with this scooter. I'd love to hear from y'all. And I'll leave you with a bunch of different content for you to explore. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I've got all kinds of scooters I work on. And, you know, I just enjoy these things so much. And I like doing some videos for you guys to enjoy with me. And overall, it's been a great pleasure working on this bike. And I can't wait to ride it. We'll do that all together in the last video. I'll see you soon.